Watch the video version of this podcast at outlatewithdavid.com.
Hi, I'm David Cotton. I'm a father, a brother, a son. I'm a retired U.S. Air Force Brigadier General, a former senior executive in the Department of Defense, a corporate vice president, and now a life coach. At the age 59, I told my wife, my kids, and the world, I'm gay. Join me as I talk with others who've made this coming out journey late in life to become who they really are.
You're listening to Out Late with David.
My guest today was a successful California chef, married with 2 kids until his wife discovered he was gay and outed him to everyone. Leaving all his possessions behind, he started a new life and is now living authentically in San Miguel, Mexico. Today he has his own culinary travel business, teaches cooking classes, and shares his personal adventures with thousands of followers on social media. Today I'll talk with Charles Vollmer. Well, Charlie, welcome today. I'm so glad that you're joining me today from Mexico. I am moved by the powerful, vulnerable posts that you put in social media, like Threads is where I watch you a lot. My understanding is that you were outed. Tell me how that transpired.
January 23 is when I looked in a mirror and admitted to myself that I was gay for the first time in my life. And it came with a lot of angst, a lot of fear, a lot of tears, a lot of pain, but a lot of self-realization as well. So that led to being on an app. And within a week of that revelation to myself, I had acknowledged my sexuality with someone else. And then it became kind of an obsession for me to explore that side that I had never explored in my entire life. Even after 30 years of marriage, I had never been with another man before that. My ex and I were at this point, were kind of living separate lives. So I kind of came and went as I pleased. But then I was traveling in Europe, and in May of 23, and when I was away over a 2-week period, she had found out, and she had outed me to my children, to my brother, to my family, to her family, basically to everybody. So I was having the time of my life in Italy and London, and then I came back to the doors of my house being locked and basically shut out. My ex outed me to my kids, to her family, to my brother, who then outed me to my sister, to my dad. And I've never talked to anybody. I just was ostracized and erased at that moment. And to this day, I have not, since that happened, I have not spoken to my ex. We've filed divorce. I've not spoken to my in-laws. I was involved with her family for over 40 years. So I have reached out to everybody, but nobody has responded. So I then traveled September through the fall of 23 and then ended up here in Mexico in November last year. And that's where I'm planning to stay. So yeah, it was pretty tumultuous, if you say.
It sounds like it. So what did she find out, and what was her motivation then to talk to, you said, your brother?
Yeah, my brother, my kids, her family. Yeah. The only thing I got from her was a text that said, you know how you can see the first 2 sentences and that's it? I knew that it was going to be this explosive thing. So all I saw was, you're not the person I thought you were. That's all I saw. And I deleted it because I wasn't even going to go through that and listen to what she was going to say. So to that end, her point was to, and we divorced in 45 days. We did a mediation.
45 days?
She wanted me done. She wanted me out. She never wanted, I will probably never speak to her again. That's just her personality. She took it personally. It became part of kind of a dark stain on her personality, her person, that she had been duped by me all these years. And
why did she think she had been duped? You said you were loyal.
These are complete assumptions. Only that I admitted I was gay, and she never asked. I never told her. We just went about our lives, and for sunrise, sunset for 30 years, raising our family, doing all the quote unquote normal things in life. Didn't have much of an intimate relationship for the last 10 years of our marriage together. So it was just a combination of things that I just know her personality and the fact that I got very public with it on social media about my coming out. It wasn't anything about our divorce. It was just, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing.
How about you? Yeah. I did
She
the
would
same
rather-
thing, and I got
Yeah.
negative comments back too.
Yeah.
I was talking about myself, and
Yeah.
others took that on as if I was assaulting them.
Yeah, the whole family, I believe, but that's why they'll respond back to my inquiries. Basically, just they wanted me to kind of just, just kind of disappear and go off and live my life. And I became very public about it because it was a part of my my journey and being out. And so I had a persona that I had to maintain through my work, and so I had to let people know that I was leaving, that I was closing my operations, and I was not going to be there, and they're all going to look for me and wonder where I'd gone. So I had to be very public about it.
So when you got married, did you think you were not straight at the time?
Is this? Oh yeah, I remember. I posted about it recently. I remember putting on the ring on my wedding day, and saying to myself, "Okay, now I can't be gay because now I've got this credibility. I've got this cover," and the day of that, I was, other than the distraction of guests running around and putting together this big extravaganza we'd planned. It was right there with the priest and, the whole situation in front of my family and the whole world. And I remember putting on that ring and just feeling that sense of cover that I could now, part of my layers of trying to keep it straight. Yeah.
But you did nothing with it physically or
never. I mean, I watched porn like most of us do. That was my outlet. And, but I knew, David, that, if I admitted to myself that I was gay, like I did when I was 60, if I'd done that when I was 30, which I thought about, I remember 2 years into my marriage, how long can you do this? Right. And I remember where I was gardening in my front yard, and I was just struggling at 2 years, saying, how are you going to do this for forever? And then I just pushed it down and pushed it down and pushed it down. Yeah. And the layers just built up. And then, it just becomes, you do the next thing. The next thing was we built a career. We built a home. And then we had our children later. So, and they were through IVF. So there's this huge process, of getting pregnant. And so you just delve into the project, and then they were born, and then it was dedicating 20 years of my life to my children. So yeah, it was just a layer on layer, always I wrote about the other day, I was always distracted by men. I was always distracted by good looking men in public. I was always trying to keep it from my family. I was always kind of like, blinders
staring straight ahead.
So yeah, it was just that. It was just this, building up the normalcy of what a life should be. And I did. I built up the career, the home, the picket fence, the community. I was highly involved civically in my community. I was involved with my kids swimming. They're still swimming collegiately right now. And I was very embedded in that lifestyle. And the only
because you're actually a stay-at-home dad, weren't you, for the first 5 years of their life?
I taught at night. I taught cooking at night. So I would be. He'd come in the morning, and my wife worked sales from home. So she would take him at 3:00. I'd go teach in the afternoon, and I was with them every minute of the day until they were 5, until they went to kindergarten. Yeah, and then I drove them to school. I drove them to school every day until mid high school.
So it sounds like you're a very supportive, involved father in the family, and even that being the case, still no communication with you now once you came out.
With no
the children, the kids.
Well, my daughter is. Let's be clear. Neither of them cares that I'm gay. They both made that clear. They're more concerned with the trauma of the divorce, the infidelity, which was right at the tail end of my relationship with their mom. I had a chance to tell my son about how that played out between January and May, and that was the only time that happened. And
they may never change. But if you really value that relationship, you've got to be patient and just do what you're doing. Continue to work through that. Meet them at they are.
And I'm blessed, David. I've got every friend. I have people say they lose their friends, they lose their family through this process. I have 12 brothers and sisters-in-law on my wife's side who I was very close to, and they all have families. And I've got my in-laws who I've known for 45 years who are in their mid-80s, late 80s, and they're not going to be around much longer. they will never speak to me again. I have my spouse, I have my kids. The rest of the world is right behind me. So
what about your professional life? Because you had the cooking school, and didn't you also sponsor tours? You would travel. You were very involved. Successful chef in San Francisco, of all places.
Well, I've been teaching cooking for 25 years. The school I established was in my home, and that was my absolute biggest fear, frankly, was to make a change, to leave my marriage, not because of gay, because I would have loved to have just left and then just become gay and just live my life and let them find out or not over time. I didn't expect it to blow up the way it had. So I'm reinventing myself here in San Miguel. And I'm also going in June, I'm going to begin looking for a space to reopen my school here. So I'll be teaching.
Oh, fantastic. More of my interview with Charlie in just a moment. But first, I'd like to recommend a book I found helpful on my coming out journey. The book is Gay Men and the New Way Forward. The author starts with the coming out continuum and the gay hero's journey. He then challenges the reader to consider the impact they can have on others simply by being their full selves as a gay man. The premise is, the more out someone is, the more confident they can be in their daily actions and therefore can have greater impact on the world around them. Coming out is on a continuum, spanning from the denial of one's sexuality with the least impact on the world to full integration of their sexuality and thereby the most impact on the world. The book builds on this premise as it explores the many facets of gay identity and masculinity. Again, the book is Gay Men and the New Way Forward. For more books and online resources about coming out late in life, visit outlatewithdavid.com. Now back to more of my conversation with Charlie. I know you talked about, the way you split up things, the assets and all that. I remember a post that you did, I think it was on Threads, and I've got it right here. It says, divorcing, giving up my San Francisco Bay home of 30 years and everything in it, donating 99% of my clothing and personal belongings and selling my car. I left for Europe to begin my life over at 61. This photo shows all I had with me to begin my new life. 2 carry-ons, my red backpack, laptop, and coffee to go.
Mm-hmm.
How did you get to that point to where 2 carry-ons, a red backpack, and a coffee to go was all you had?
Yeah. I made a determination that my home life was so very toxic, David, that I didn't want to negotiate anything with her. I didn't want to sit down and divvy things up. And I knew that everything I took from that house, which we've collected together, other than some very personal things, some professional cooking equipment, things like that, would remind me of her. I just determined that I needed a severe break. And that means that I wanted to get rid of everything I owned. I'm going to start over with nothing. And then just having those few possessions, I did. I sold my car in the morning back to the dealer who I bought it from. And I got on a flight 5 p.m. later in the day.
You said you have a new life purpose as well. You said to share your story. What's the motivation and intent behind that?
I discovered that coming out later, particularly as a dad, as a real dad, coming from a heterosexual marriage, was a really unique subset of the community. And we have particular needs that need to be addressed completely separately. And everybody's journey is we have that commonality, but then how it plays out and how we come out and how it's told to the world and how we then begin to live our new life is very, very different. So I have a unique story in that, and I have met hundreds of men who are in my position. They are in their 60s. They have been married forever. They have children. They have no options to escape. They have no means to change. They're in the middle of the country. They're in small towns. I had this one guy I met who he and his wife run a business together. It's a family run business. It's a kind of generational business. And if he comes out, it's going to rip the whole thing apart. And what is he going to do? Right. Mm-hmm. And then a lot of gay men who are married, and this is coming up a lot, which shocks me to no end. I tell my spouse that I'm gay, and she says, that's fine. Let's just stay together. But you can be gay. That's okay. Mm-hmm. I'll live with you being gay, but you can't be with men. You have to stay monogamous with me. You can just be gay, and you can go hang out with guys, but you can't have sex with men. And I'm just going, what? I just don't, I don't know how that fits in. And there are some who are considering it, and some who are like trying to figure out how their relationship will change based on the dual sexualities, and then
you
trying
have the
to
mixed orientation
families.
marriage where maybe she's got a boyfriend and he's got a boyfriend.
Right. Exactly. I also am a place which I've expressed before. I have they're seniors in college. They are grown adults. I don't have to worry about visitation. I don't have to worry about alimony. I don't have to worry about all those other real complex things that keep couples together.
Right.
And I stayed together for my kids. I didn't think I would. I will tell you right now, I never thought that I would come out ever. I was going to go to my grave as it played out, and I will tell you the way that my outing happened, it was horrible and terrible, but the silver lining is it ripped off this Band-Aid that I probably, if that not had happened, I would still be in California in my house wondering how am I going to tell my family, because I didn't think that I had the courage to sit them down and look them in the face and tell them. It would probably have been in a letter or some kind of something, right? But I don't think I could have looked at them.
In my case, I was at the point where I didn't want to live anymore, and I had to come out to stay alive.
Yeah.
I didn't want to wake up the next day.
Yeah. I had two, over the last 20 years, I've had two unsuccessful attempts at taking my life because it was just too much. And luckily I made it through. But I will tell you that depression and that anxiety and that sense of dread, it still comes up. It still comes up. Yeah. There are days when I feel like I did 10 years ago, even in my new life, in my gay life, where it's too much, the weight.
So when that comes up, what do you do to make sure it doesn't overtake you?
I have 3 people I call. I have resources. I call people and I reach out, and I'm not one to, I don't like to overplay how I'm feeling or to worry people too much. So I don't tell them that I'm thinking those thoughts. So those are my private thoughts. I don't tell them, I'm ready to go jump off a bridge, but it's more of I hurt more than I tell them I'm hurting, but it's enough. Their feedback is enough that it takes me back from the edge.
Well, it's good you have those 3 friends, and that's a good idea to even have them on speed dial on your phone to do that.
Yep.
And then for those that live in the United States, if they dial 988 from their cell phone,
right,
that's the National Mental Health Hotline. And if you're a veteran, 9881 as well. So
and we do have those, friends. And there are also I have sought it out here within the Mexican culture and the government here. There are suicide resources, suicide prevention resources. Also, there are LGBTQ resources as well. So I've researched all that, and they're close at hand in case I need. Okay. But there are enough, frankly, enough people here in San Miguel who I know. Gay men who I know, who I have gotten to know very intimately, closely, that they're also a great resource for me.
Excellent.
Glad to hear that.
And I'm going to encourage everyone to do the same. Make sure you've got close people that you can contact whenever you have that need.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now that you've been through this, you gave us a little glimpse of what you have planned for the future. But really, what do you see as your future? Let's jump 15 years. What do you look like? What are you doing? Where are you? What do you want to have accomplished, and what's still on the to-do list? My future is going to be, the last third of the book is going to be about coming out and how that all translated together to living my best life, where I'm cooking and teaching and doing all the things that I love and adding on my authenticity and my true self. And that will come eventually, because I'm not there yet. I'm still challenged by that every day about, I wrote today, I just posted on Threads today about, I have so much support out there, and I've got all these people and just rooting for me, and every day they're just propping me up and pushing me forward. And I'm still in my head. I'm still challenged by that. I told somebody yesterday, I was always trying to be this moral compass for my family, for my kids. And I was the protector. I was the provider. And my father was not such a great dad, that I wanted to be a better dad. And so that was my challenge all my life. And right now I'm in a place where, as a married couple, my wife and I have never talked about sex with my kids. We never even discussed our intimate life at all, right? The challenge I have right now, David, is that I feel a bit of shame and guilt in that
being gay is it's the thing that makes it different is that it's about sex. It's about intimacy with men to men. And that is a conversation that I've talked to my son about it a little bit, and my daughter not at all. But I'm still, as a gay person, but still as living a straight life for as long as I have, there is this struggle for me to be comfortable talking to my son about having a relationship with a man, right? About being intimate with a man, which is, and I've had to be able to tell him. I told him once about when I first got with somebody, and I said I needed to do that. I cheated on your mom because I needed to do that to know that I was who I was, and I wanted to validate that. But I'm still challenged in that little back of my mind, that little thing about morality, that little thing about, that male to male intimacy is not natural. It's not the way it was supposed to be. And I still carry that. And I can't be honest, and I'm going to write about it today because it's so fresh in my mind. That is the one thing. There's an embarrassment for me. There's a shame and there's a guilt that I have toward my kids about being able to openly discuss that,
So if that's the old rule that you have linked to shame and embarrassment, what's a new rule that you could replace that with that would better serve you in those conversations?
There are two lessons I've learned, and there is not one conversation that I have with anybody that is lost on me. Everything I listen to is become a part of my headspace, and I process it. I write about it. I put it down on paper. I also was with a guy in Guanajuato. I put out that online the other day, and I call him unapologetically gay. And this was a guy who's very hyper masculine, just big and burly and bearded, and just this big burly guy who looks like he should be like the man's man or the women's man, whatever. And he spent he mentioned at one point during the weekend, he said, I've been gay since I can remember. I said, I've never had sex with a woman. I've never been with a woman. I never wanted to be with a woman. It was never even in the cards for me. And he is unapologetically gay, meaning that he's gay. He doesn't care who knows. You can't tell by outwardly because he's so straight acting, but he just has, and and he has a confidence about himself that I really admire. So I learned from him just to not apologize. He says, we are who we are. And that was the message. All last weekend I was with him, and we were with a bunch of his friends and stuff. And we were just out having a great time. And nobody, it wasn't even brought up. It wasn't even a question. We were just all being ourselves. And
it sounds like you, on those two stories, that you have your new rule to replace your old rule.
Which you're going to tell me is?
Just, we are who we are. You just said it.
Exactly.
As a life coach, I'm committed to help you discover the passions in your life and help you map a course to achieve the things you really want. Together, we will unwind those persistent self-doubts that are holding you back. You'll begin to see your passions more clearly and set achievable goals. Throughout your journey, I'll be there to challenge and encourage you in moving forward to discover your authentic self. For more information about my personal life coaching services, or to arrange a complimentary consultation, visit davidcottoncoaching.com.
You're listening to Out Late with David.
A lot of it, I think, frankly, David, is I wrote about it recently also that I've been lost. I've lost a routine, and kind of my life structure was just kind of ripped away. That's what I'm rebuilding, and I have to rebuild it as a gay person, which means that I'm looking at. I came out for the first 6 months. I said, I'll never get. I just came out of 30-year toxic marriage. Why would I ever want to be with anybody again? Why would I ever want to be in a relationship? And all these men who want to say, I want you to be my partner. Would you be my partner? I'm like, no way. I'm not ready to do that. But I do know that, and I fall in love probably a dozen times over the last year. Just in, there's just this, and it's something that as a hetero man, when you married your wife, who I loved her and I respected her and I adored her, and I was attracted to her physically for a period of our life, but was never 100% in love with anybody in my whole life. That's physically, emotionally, all together at the same time. And that is a combination that cannot be equaled. And I've had that at least a half dozen times last year.
It's that emotional, intellectual, and physical, all three of those. It's the...
Yeah. And at 61, I never had that in my whole life, ever. And so to feel that for the first time was dramatic and traumatic, but also exhilarating to the point where I thought I could fall in love with somebody and be together.
So knowing what you know and having been through this experience, what might you have done differently or would like to have happened differently?
Ideally, I'd like to have been my friend Daniel, who came out when he was, in his teens and is unapologetically gay. And he knew it from the beginning, and a lot of these guys just decide that's who they are. And, and then to never have ever touched a woman or been with a woman or had sex with a woman your whole life, because you knew all your life that was not for you. It was almost, that. And I had girlfriends all my life, and I had sexual relationships with women all my life up to the point I got married. And then I didn't cheat on my wife during our married years. So if I had to do it over again, I would have loved to have been in an environment where I could have come out early, If I had known what I know now, I would have come out earlier. As painful as it would have been to everybody around me, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. Who knows where I would be? Would I have liked to have come out when I was 20? Absolutely. And who knows where I would be, As people have said, I probably would have had been married to my husband for 30 years and be really happy. I don't know. Right. So that is my only regret, is that I didn't have the foundation in my life, in my family life, to be able to be myself early on. And I wasn't myself in so many parts of my life. I was just trying to just keep my head above water and trying to just survive. And that was, which is hard to be an adolescent and have all these secrets and all these things you can't talk about. You can't mention it. God forbid I brought up, wanting to have sex with men when I was 15 with my parents. I mean, it was just like, that would never have happened, and, or at least have an ally. I had nobody. There was nobody that I could talk to. There were, and then I've been through therapy all my life for one reason or another. And somebody asked me, "You've been through therapy?" Sure. And my mom died. I had therapy for a couple of years. I was just having family issues. And all those times, I was 3 different therapists, all those times over the course of maybe a decade. Not once did I feel safe to even mention my sexuality to one of those therapists, ever. Wow. And that's how deeply it was just embedded. Yeah.
Last question, what piece of advice would you have to provide to men who have this realization that they're not being true to themselves about their sexuality?
The only thing I can say, what I say to most people is you have to do it in your own time, right? You have to be, a lot of it, for me, it was a layer, and that coming out to myself was the first barrier, the first thing that I never thought I would do. I couldn't even say to myself, like I just did, I'm gay, in my head. I couldn't say it at all, ever. But I knew that if I did, I would go to that next line. So you need to know, for me, even though I didn't have it planned, and I'm a very prescribed, planned person, and I like everything to be very, set and determined. This was one of the few things I've done in my whole life that was completely off track, completely out of character, completely out of the box, completely out of the lines. And that was all that fear was. I didn't know how it was going to play out. No idea. And the only way that it could happen is to let it happen the way it did and let the chips fall where they may. And the pain and the trauma of it lasted for a couple of months until I got my footing, At least the first month was just tragic and horrible and awful. But then you find your way and you start calling out those favors. I tell people all the time, I would have been lost if I didn't have my friends, if I didn't have these wonderful angels who offered me places to stay. and places to recover and places to kind of regroup and not have to worry about, a place to stay and food and everything that I needed to do just to settle and get my head straight. And I get it. Most people don't have those resources with those networks. And I will tell you too, it's like, you got to rip off the Band-Aid. You can't just you can't just piecemeal it out. We have a mutual friend who I think, Mark in Florida, New York, he sat down with his kids the other day and they just told him. Yep. And he said it turned out beautifully, so much better than he would have expected it would have. But actually, and I remember he told the community that he was going to tell everybody, and my heart was in my throat thinking about, because I never had to do that. I never had to sit down with him, but I'm just in my own, all that anxiety came to me was, how would he do this? And I just said, I'm with you. Good luck. And he came back a few hours later and said it was awesome. And the kids are amazing. And they both, his older
surprise
kid.
you. They'll surprise you.
So to me, my only advice is take your time with it. Don't let anybody push you beyond where you're comfortable. Know that it's going to be a challenge. Know that it's going to be really, really hard. It'll be the hardest thing you do all your life. But like you said, you had to do it, or it was your salvation. It was your life. Yeah. And as painful as it will be, you just have to do it.
So, Chef Charles Vollmer, thank you very much for your time today.
Welcome.
From your 2 carry-ons, red backpack, laptop, and a cup of coffee to go. Where you are today. Thank you for sharing your story. As you and I know, others are going to hear this. It's going to provide comfort and insight because they may be really early and raw and not sure. And it gives them hope to know that you can go through what you've been through and come out pretty well in many ways. You're rebuilding, as you said, you're finding community, rebuilding your business, and there's hope for you as you go forward. So I really appreciate you being so open and honest and vulnerable, not only here today, but what you're posting on a regular basis for others.
Absolutely. And thank you also for the invitation, David. And it's people like you that's making this worth doing and keeps us kind of moving forward. My last point is, if there's anybody out there who is in our position, particularly gay dads who are stuck or stifled and can't figure out, reach out to me through Threads or whatever it may be. And I have sidebars with guys all the time, just kind of helping them walk through things. So
I do as well. And we're both members of Gay Fathers Worldwide on Facebook, which is a great support group. And there's Husbands Out to Wives are two that I'm part of. Yeah. And again, just like you're available to contact me as well. And I talk to guys as well.
Likewise. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
David. You're welcome.
Good luck to you.
And I say good luck to everyone who's listening, because it can be rough, but it also can be the most amazing thing you ever do in your life. So keep moving forward.
I think so many men can relate to Charlie's story. He'd always known he wasn't exactly straight, but hoped marriage could change him. I think Charlie would agree his coming out story was, to put it simply, a disaster. His family is still hurt by what they see as an unforgivable breach of trust, and rebuilding that trust will take time. So my takeaway is, in your journey of self-discovery, while it may be hard to find the courage to share your truth, to rip off that Band-Aid covering your biggest secret, by sharing the secret yourself, you're giving others the chance to accept you for who you are. By taking control of your own story, you may help mitigate some of the impact on the people you love and allow yourself what might be an easier path to your own happiness. We thank Charlie for his courage in sharing his story and invite you to join us next time on Out Late with David.
To hear more episodes, visit outlatewithdavid.com. And to learn more about personal life coaching services, go to davidcottoncoaching.com.